Okay, good evening and welcome to our live broadcast, October 16th, 2015. Yesterday I was back in Stony Creek, so didn't work out. I've moved most of the stuff over here, so I didn't have the required equipment really to do a live broadcast. But that'll only be one more week. Next week I'll be going again, and that should be the end of it, I think. How's my volume? Am I loud enough?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do Dhammapada tonight. We have another short one, but it's a good one. So, testing. Got it. But it would be good if we had a memory card. Let me see here. Hello and welcome back to our study of the Dhammapada. Today we continue on with verse number 90, which reads as follows. Kattadino visokasa vipamutasa sambandhi sabagantha pahinasa parilaho navijati, which means Gatadino, for one who has completed their journey, completed the going. Visokasa, one who is free from sorrow. Vipamutasa sabadi, one who is liberated everywhere, who is everywhere free, everywhere they go. Sabagantha pahinasa, one who has abandoned all fetters, all forms of clinging, every object of attachment. Parilaho navijati, no fever can be found, no distress. Distress is probably the best translation. Parilaha. Katadino visokasa. Very beautiful little verse. It talks about the fever. Parilaha is often translated as fever. That's probably etymologically fairly correct. Burning, right? But in this specific instance, because of the story and because of the context of the verse itself, it's not a fever; it's a mental fever, a mental burning. So we would translate it as distress or fever of passion. But literally, it means burning. I think daha. Paridaha becomes parilaha. So the story, this was told in regards to a question posed by Jivaka, who was a doctor, and the doctor who looked after the Buddha. And his story is not told here. Can't remember if it's actually told in the Dhammapada. I don't think so. Maybe in the Jataka it occurs, but in the Vinaya definitely you find his story. He was a master doctor, an exceptional medicine man. They say that the final task given to him by his teacher was to stake out a 16-kilometer by 16-kilometer square piece of land, which is a league, a square league, yojana of land, and bring to his teacher every plant in the entire square league that had no medicinal properties. And this was the task. So he set out to accomplish this task, came back sometime later and said to the teacher, there are no such plants. There are no plants in that 16. I couldn't find any plants that were without medicinal properties. And that's how his teacher knew that he passed, because he was able to identify medicinal properties in all plants. That's the story. So he was exceptional. He got, he caused a little bit of trouble, or he got into a little bit of trouble, not of his own, not on his own. He was actually an awesome, wonderful person. He donated a mango grove to the Buddha, and you can still go and see the place that's supposed to be this, where this mango grove was, right at the bottom of Vulture's Peak, because Vulture's Peak was difficult to go up constantly to take care of the Buddha. So in order to make it easier for him to take care of the Buddha when the Buddha was sick, he would, and also to make it easier for the Buddha to go on alms round when the Buddha was ill, he gave him this mango grove at the bottom of the hill, the bottom of the mountain. But as he was looking after the Buddha, he also took on the role of looking after the monks. And as a result of paying so much attention, taking so much time to look after the Sangha, his other patients started to miss him. And so people who were sick would actually ordain as monks, just to try and get this level of care. And this was actually the reason why the Buddha instated the rule that someone who is sick, someone who has this sickness, has any terrible sickness, shouldn't be allowed to ordain. I mean, there are other reasons for it. Obviously, it's problematic, but it's one of those things that leads people to ordain for the wrong reasons. And this happens in Buddhist countries where they become lax about this. And these people become a burden on the monastic Sangha rather than actually promoting Buddhism and doing good things. So there's a few stories about him. But this story actually concerns Devadatta tangentially, because the story goes that Devadatta was trying all sorts of ways to kill the Buddha. Devadatta was the Buddha's cousin, and he got upset and jealous of the Buddha, and he wanted to be the leader of the Sangha. Just kind of an all-around mean and nasty sort of fellow. And so he sent an elephant after the Buddha, and the Buddha tamed the elephant. It was this mad elephant that was supposed to trample the Buddha, and the Buddha tamed him with loving kindness. He sent some archers after the Buddha, some mercenaries after the Buddha, and they all converted to become monks. And finally, he just got fed up, and as the Buddha was coming down from Vulture's Peak, he dropped a rock, a big boulder on the Buddha, trying to crush him from up on high. And as the rock was falling down, it hit some sort of outcropping, of course, because you can't kill the Buddha. It just doesn't happen. His karma is too good. But a little splinter, a small splinter, broke off. The rest of the rock veered out of the way and didn't come close to the Buddha, but a small splinter came and hit the Buddha's foot. And Jivaka looked after the Buddha. The Buddha lay down, and Jivaka bandaged him up, or put some poultice on the wound. I think the commentaries try to say that he didn't actually bleed because it's impossible to make the Buddha bleed, but it's about the translation as to what exactly is meant happened anyway. Whatever, the Buddha was injured, and then he put some herbs on it, something strong that would take the pain away and make the swelling go down, but it was quite strong. And Then Jivaka had to go into the city to look after his patients in the city. And he was late. He was looking after some rich person or maybe even the king, and he was late coming back, and they closed the gates to the city before he could get out. And so he had to stay all night in the city, and he was worried all night and concerned because he had to go back and take this poultice off of the Buddha's ankle, or else it would cause harm. It would actually cause harm to the Buddha, and so he was unable to let the Buddha know. Fortunately, that's the benefit of having all sorts of supernatural powers. The Buddha was able to discern that it was time to take the poultice off, and took it, and had Ananda help him take it off, and waited there for Jivaka to come. So no harm done. But harm that was done to Jivaka, who was worrying and fretting, who was distressed. Now, Jivaka was actually a Sotapanna. I think at this time he was already a Sotapanna, though I'm not sure of the actual timeline. I'd have to look deeper into that. But I think he was already a Sotapanna at this point. So he was already an Arya Bugala, but he was still subject to distress. And so he fretted about this for the long time, that he was kept in the city. And finally, when the gates opened in the morning, he sprinted his way over to Vulture's Peak and came to the Buddha and asked him, "I'm sorry, Venerable Sir, that I wasn't able to come. Were you distressed by the pain? Were you distressed by your illness?" And that's where this verse comes from. Jivaka asked him this simple question, and the Buddha said, "For one who has gone to the end, who is free from sorrow, one who is free everywhere, who has become liberated everywhere, who has abandoned all ties, parilahu navijati. There is no fever to be found, no distress to be found." The word fever is too ambiguous, but when it never becomes distressed. So this was, I think last night we had the question whether an arahant can suffer, whether it can actually be called suffering when an arahant feels pain because they don't have, and this is what they don't have. The translation that we've got in the book actually says, it translates parilaha as suffering, but that's probably not accurate. It's again too ambiguous, too general. The specific meaning is a burning up. So it's often referring to the body, but here it means burning up in the mind. Were you distressed? Did it distress you? Upset? Did it upset you? Were you upset by it? Were you distressed by it? Were you vexed by it? And the Buddha said there is no vexation for one who has become free. And so that's the answer to that question, that they do actually feel dukkha vedana in the body, but they're not vexed by it. A very important point that all of us as meditators, hopefully by this time, have heard or have come to be familiar with. But it's a point that has to be made, especially for people who are new to the meditation. The difference between not only physical suffering, but external conditions, like the state of Jivaka, who was stuck in the city, was incredibly vexed and disturbed and distressed. But, he had a good heart, but he wasn't helping the Buddha by being vexed and distressed, by being upset. And in fact, he was simply doing damage to his own mind. And so to some extent, the Buddha was using this as a lesson to Jivaka as well, not only to reassure him, but also to remind him not to get upset. I wasn't upset. Why did you get upset? And so this is because of the difference between the physical, the external, and our reactions. Pain doesn't have to be a bad thing. Excruciating pain doesn't have to be a bad thing. Situations don't have to cause us anger and frustration and upset or boredom or worry or fear. And when people do things to us, when others hurt us, we do the worst thing when we respond with anger. When someone gets angry at us and we respond with anger, we're the worst. We are creating the worst evil, Buddha said. But this is a clear indication of the difference between our experiences and our reactions to them. So what do we have? One who has gone to the end means, actually I don't know, Gat Adino. It's translated as one who has gone to the end of the journey. Yeah, well, that's what they say here, but let's see exactly what it means. Adin. One who has gone the distance. So who has completed the path. I think meditators asking how you know how far you're progressing, and it's all this idea of the path. And I'm often cynical about whether we should really focus too much on the idea of a path. It's misleading, I think. I think it's fine to talk about the idea of a path, but when we are concerned about our progress, it can become quite obsessive, as we're worried about where we are, wondering when we're going to get there, that kind of thing. On the other hand, having the idea of the path is a reminder that we can't be complacent, that we do have to walk and journey. But it's important as a teacher and as a meditator to not be too focused on progress. So this idea of the path or the journey, it's poetic and it's useful to know that there is a journey. But when you're walking a journey, you don't want to be the person in the back seat saying, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" Right? That part of the mind should be silenced. The walking has to continue. All you have to do is put one foot in front of the other. You know that there's a path and you follow it. It's much simpler than we think. We think of it as being some kind of like a paved road with road signs telling you 10 kilometers left or something like that, but it's not really. It's a path we've never gone, and a path that has no clear signs that we can distinguish because we've never, we have nothing, no frame of reference. So our job is, yes, to follow the path, but that simply means putting one foot in front of the other, metaphorically speaking. We sokasa. So an enlightened being has no soka, no sadness, no sorrow. They don't long for anything. They don't pine away at loss. They don't worry about losing the things that they have. No soka, no sadness. Vipamutasa sambadi, in all directions, on all sides, everywhere. Vipamutta, freed, liberated, completely liberated. Sabaganta pahinasa, having abandoned or destroyed or gotten rid of all binds or ties, severed all ties. So people talk a lot about detachment, how Buddhism is a clear indication of how Buddhism does encourage the idea of detachment. But people get the wrong idea that it somehow translates into a sense of or a state of zombie-like nothingness or meaninglessness. All it means is to not cling to things as they go by, because the problem is we have this idea that things exist constantly or in some stable form, and so we're talking about shying away from them. That people think non-attachment means it's there, don't go near it, but that's not it. It's not there actually. What is there is a moment, and that arises and ceases. That's fine. Be as close and as clearly aware of that as you can be. That's the point. But when it's gone, don't go with it, Don't let it pull you into the past. Don't let thoughts about the future pull you into the future. You end up like this, being pulled to both sides, past and future. And you're never really here and now. That's what non-attachment means. It would make sense if there were things here that were stable to attach to them, because you could depend upon them, right? But there's nothing like that. Nothing is of that sort. Everything arises and ceases, comes and goes, is uncertain. Even all the possessions that we have, that we think we have constantly throughout our lives, the people who are with us. The reason we're so sad is because we take them as some stable entity that can be controlled and that is long-lasting and so on. And so we bind ourselves to them with this attachment. Non-attachment or detachment. Non-attachment's a better way of phrasing it. Non-attachment means experiencing, but experiencing as experience, seeing people as individual experiences, seeing things as individual experiences, because that's what they are. That's what you really have. How can you say you have a car when you don't see it, when you don't hear it, when you're not in front of it, when it's not in front of you? How can you say that you even have people in your life when they're not here and now? All you have is a thought that arises and ceases. Even when they're with you, all you have is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, and thinking. So non-attachment just means seeing things as they are and being with things. So being with, if there's people around you, there's people around you. If there's no one around you, there's no one around you. It's not pining away after something that isn't there or clinging to something that is. For such a person who is of this sort, there is no fever. So what it means is they have no likes or dislikes. They have no vexation, no upset when things don't go as expected, because they have no expectations. They're perfectly at peace and perfectly flexible. I think flexible is a very important aspect. Just naturally flexible because they have no preference. They are content the way things are, however they are. So that's the Dhammapada for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in, and keep practicing and be well. So Robin, do we have any questions?
We do, Bhante.
Just a second. I'll turn you up. Okay.
Hello, Bhante. I have a question regarding livelihood. The money interests of the banks in my country are so high because of the bad and unmanaged economic situation that some people live their lives with the interest that they get from investing money in the banks. Do you think it is right livelihood? Because one is not really working for the money that he gets, by considering the fact that the invested money was worked for.
No, I don't think that's wrong livelihood. No, I don't think that's an issue of wrong livelihood. You're not actually taking money, you're being given money. That's different. If you go out of your way to, like, let's take a similar example. So I would say that's my answer, is that it's being given to you, right? Now let's take the example of royalties on copyright. I have no problem with that. If people give you money for each book that is being sold that you produced, that's not a problem. But when you go out of your way to prevent other people from copying that work so you can make money, so you can make more money, that I have a problem with. So it's a question of that. Now you have to ask yourself, am I doing something to prevent other people from gaining this sort of, state of well-being? funny, every time I talk, the static arises. Wonder what's causing that.
I'm not sure. You sound a little louder. You started out kind of normal. It seems to have gotten a little louder.
Every time I talk, there's static. There's a in the background. Well,
I don't hear it, but I don't have headset on either.
huh. Maybe I need a headset on. What if I use a headset? Do you think that would help? No, because it's nothing to do with the speakers. I think it may be something to do with the something to do with the noise cancellation. So yeah, I mean, if somehow that means that you are like if in order to attain that state you had to manipulate the markets or manipulate the economic structure, or you had to lobby for a low capital gains tax or that kind of thing, like what rich people do to try and jerry rig the elections and lobby their politicians to get their capital gains tax lowered. Like I think in the US the capital gains tax is absurdly low. That's what some people say, which means if you are living off of your investments, you pay very little taxes on it. You pay less taxes than the ordinary people. And that's, I understand, I mean, I'm not an economist, but I understand some people say that that's been caused by simply lobbying. Rich people have all the money, so they use that money to influence politics, and then they get away with it, and they're now obscenely rich, some people say. So I'd say that aspect of it is wrong livelihood. But simply living off interest isn't wrong. I would say that the fact that you can, well, it's not wrong livelihood. It's probably untenable, in the long run. Like it's not something you could continue and do so ethically, because of the need to give to other people. Now let's suppose there was a society where everyone was taken care of. Because you somehow, if you're taking money from the society, you somehow have a responsibility to help with the running of it. No, I don't know. I mean, it's a very complicated issue at that point. But I'd say no, you can't say that that's wrong livelihood. But I think there's going to come situations where you're going to be sort of having to give it up. I mean, there are other examples like Social Security, where you've worked for a long time and you have a retirement plan. And that's the sense that you've done your job, and society says, well, this person has done their part, and now we take care of them. They worked for this money. It's, as I understand, the money has gone into you, has been taken out of your paycheck or something like that. I don't really know how it works, but then you're given good interest on it or something. In Canada, we have that. My dad gets now, not much, but he gets something every month. So that is an example, I think, of living off interest that is. So you see, it's how it's societally acceptable. But if you're doing it off the backs of people who are just barely able to scrape by and who are treated terribly unfairly, then yeah, you're still not convinced that it's wrong livelihood, but it's maybe you'd have a new category of wrong livelihood, but it's more like unethical, because there's no way you can live with yourself reasonably and do it off the backs of others. I mean, I don't think it's certainly not considered wrong livelihood to be richer than other people, but there is something to being unfairly rich, to the point where you're doing it at the expense of others. As I've said, like in cases where income disparity is just so absurd that it's clear that there's no reason for I mean, the society is unfairly, um, what do you say, unfairly gamed in favor of rich people, that kind of thing. So I'd say definitely something to be mindful of. Ultimately, as I said, the best is the only way you can be truly pure is to give up everything. Read the Vesantara Jataka. It's an incredible story of this guy who did just give up everything. He gave up his kingdom. He gave up his belongings. He ended up giving up his wife and children. Gave to the extreme. Like literally uh, put himself at the mercy of the universe. And just uh, was content with whatever happened. I mean, the Bodhisattva did this in so many lifetimes. Gave up everything and just let what happened happen. If he got leaves to eat, fruit, wild fruit in the forest, that's what he would eat. That's the only way to be truly, that sort of thing is the only way to be truly pure. So, you don't have to be too extreme about it. But definitely there are issues, societal issues that do involve morality, ethics, and are very important things for Buddhists to talk about. Again, that's why I'm now just hearing some of the things that certain politicians have been saying. Well, one certain politician that I've been kind of interested in has been saying, whether right or not, the intention seems to be good to change these sorts of things. And I think as Buddhists, we have to say that's a part of it. How can you live with yourself, knowing that you are obscenely rich and the system has been gamed in order to allow you to get so obscenely rich without any benefit, So the system just has to be fair, I don't think there's anything wrong with being born with a trust fund or that kind of thing. I think in the long term, an enlightened being would give up a trust fund or use it for good purposes, maybe. But it gets a lot worse than that, depending on the society. So, complicated issue. But something, in the end, as I've said before, a lot of society's issues simply have to do with mindfulness. If you're mindful and you're aware of how it's affecting you and how you feel, if you feel guilty about it, there's one of two reasons. Either you're overestimating the situation, like you step on an ant and you didn't realize it and then you feel really bad about it, or there's a reason, or you're doing something that's unconscionable. Conscionable? Yeah. All right.
Is it just me, or does the alarm that should sound in between walking and sitting meditation not work anymore?
I don't know. Does it work, Robin?
It works.
Okay, so this is a question. If it doesn't work for you, let us know what type of thing you're using. Like, is it a computer or is it a iPad or an iPhone? Because if it's an iPad or an iPhone, that's probably your problem. If you can use Chrome, do they have Chrome for iOS or Firefox? I don't think there's Firefox, but there may be Chrome. Try using a different browser, but let us know if it's not working, what your device is and what your browser is, and we can look into it. But if it's working in Firefox on Linux, then there you go. Then that's what you should all be using. I think it maybe works on Android as well, but on Android we have an app. And hopefully on iOS we'll have an app soon as well. What happened to that guy who was working on it? Sort of disappeared. Maybe I should get in touch with him.
Yeah, I have noticed when I don't use the app, if I just try to sign in through the browser on a phone, it doesn't work.
On Android?
Yeah, on Android, if I just sign in through the browser, the uh, the alarm's not working. But it's not really a good reason to do that since we have the app. So Not a big deal.
It's not, yeah, I mean, sound like that in a website, it's not easy to code. It's not really, it's new.
Yeah.
And it's complicated because some browsers use MP3 files, some browsers use OGG files. It's a bit of a mess. So, yeah. Anyway, let us know. We'll take a look at it. Or if there's anybody out there who knows about these things, please let us know.
A Sakadagami is a once returner in a human realm, correct? What if there is no human realm to go to at the time of the physical death?
What kind of a question is that? I mean, it's an honest question, but it's not really a meditative question. I mean, I guess in a sense, who cares? But sorry, I don't mean to really make fun of the question, but maybe a soft reprimand is in order. Like, do we really need the answer to that question? It's a bit speculative, I guess is the point. So I could give an answer, and there is a probably fairly interesting answer, but I think it's a bit too speculative. So maybe we'll pass that one. Maybe I'm missing something about how important that question is, but we'll skip it for now.
Okay. During walking meditation, I got a foot cramp. It is very painful, but goes away when you literally walk it off. Should I keep walking and note pain, 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 or stop and stand and note pain?
Yeah, I mean, foot cramps are a bit interesting because they can, I don't know, can they lead to injury? I mean, they certainly get worse if you don't shake them out, right? Sometimes. So I would say it's reasonable to shake them out or do whatever it takes to overcome it. That's fine. But while you're doing it, just be mindful. That's probably better than, it's not just being stupid about pain and injury and that kind of thing. The Buddha said one of the ways of continuing on the path is by avoiding. I can't remember what the Pali is. Vinas, I think it's Vinat. No, it's not Vinas. Yeah, maybe Vinasana, maybe. Can't remember what the Pali is. By avoiding. So sometimes you have to fix things. Sometimes. Don't just sit there and say, well, if I'm in pain, I'm pain. Sometimes it causes problems for you physically and mentally.
Yeah, I think if it gets bad, you can probably fall if you can't really move your foot properly. Okay, my apologies. The question regarding the Sakadagami with no room on the human realm, it was retracted later. I didn't notice that. So um, the person asking realized that he didn't really want to ask that.
Hey, we've all asked questions.
Yeah, sometimes they just come out, and a moment later you say, huh, why did I say that?
Yep. It's okay. Better ask them. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Just be prepared that we might have some choice words about them. It's nothing personal.
Bante, how do you work on a defilement which you don't have a lot of exposure to, but you know can occur?
Well, meditation's supposed to help with that. Meditation tests you. That's why we do intensive meditation courses, because they bring everything up. But it can take years, I mean, you're not going to get everything in one go. It's more like layers of an onion. You slowly, slowly untie one knot after another. But it can all be found, it's all based on simple building blocks. So eventually it can all be found with quite simple exercises. Walking back and forth and sitting should show you everything. But you don't have to go, you know, looking for the defilements. They will come.
Bante, during walking meditation, sometimes my mind stays with one foot. For example, I note stepping right, but after that, my mind wants to stay with the right foot, so I note knowing, knowing. Sometimes am mindful of the pressure on my right foot, is that a good thing to do, or do I need to be mindful of my left foot?
Sorry. Say again, please.
During walking meditation, sometimes my mind stays with one foot. For example, I note stepping right, but after that, my mind wants to stay with the right foot. So I note knowing. Sometimes I am mindful of the pressure on my right foot. Is that a good thing to do? Or do I need to be mindful of my left foot?
That's fine. There's no need to. So when that comes up, that's fine. Just be mindful of it, and then eventually move your mind to the left foot and continue on.
In Pali, are V's pronounced as W, such as vipassana? Sometimes it sounds like you say vipassana.
It's about halfway between a V and a W, but in modern times it's more closer to a W. But it should be more like vipassana, halfway between. That's apparently how it should be.
Halfway between is hard. It's that takes some practice. I don't do that too well.
In Latin, it was like this. The V, the letter V that we have, as I understand it, is actually supposed to be pronounced W. There's no W in Latin. It's the V, as I understand. Like the famous Caesar's famous Vini Vidi Vici. I thought it was Vici, but it's Vici. Vini Vidi Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Veni Vidi Vici. Anyway.
Bhante, is part of the progress in the path to know our defilements more clearly and struggle more with our desires? I have noted my wrong view about the beauty of the body, but it is very difficult to change it.
Well, it should be. You've had that desire and that attachment for a long time. So now you can see the depth of the problem. You can see the analogy of 1,000 miles, the journey of 1,000 miles, a step-by-step journey of 1,000 miles isn't that far off. So it just takes work.
But aren't certain things at least temporarily stable, like possessions? Wouldn't it be wise to create a method to attach temporarily?
No, that would not be wise. Aren't certain things at least temporarily stable? No, because the things don't exist. It's a deeper point that's being made. Not that, my teapot might break sometime. It's that my teapot doesn't even exist. When the teapot breaks, the idea of the teapot can no longer be found. And the experiences associated with the idea of the teapot can no longer be experienced. But the teapot itself never existed.
During meditation, sometimes I sneeze. I note feeling, and then note sneezing if I end up sneezing. Is this the proper way to deal with such things when they arise?
Sure. That sounds good.
Okay, I'm just noticing here people listening are also hearing the static. I don't hear it, but I think it's because I don't have headphones on right now.
It only is happening now when I talk. I don't know. I can try a different mic, but doesn't seem like that would be the answer. It sounds very much like a Google thing.
Oh.
Something they're doing that's a little weird. Anyway.
Which politician have you been paying attention to?
Bernie Sanders. Why? Because he seems to care about people. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear if there are others out there, but I never got this feeling from anybody else that I've been told about or heard about. I heard something, we've got an election here in Canada, and I heard something about the politicians here, but I never really, got the sense that they actually cared. I mean, I'm sure that some of them are nice people, but, someone who has been fighting for a long time to help people. And like, I actually wanted to tell you all this story, and I don't mean to sound like promoting anything, but no, anyway, it's not that important. I don't want to get into politics. But it was a good story, actually. It was the story about Sandra Bland. Is that her name? This black woman who was pulled from her car, arrested, and died in jail a few days later. Sort of mysteriously committed suicide. And anyway, it's not even worth telling. I'm not going to go into it. Forget it. Don't get me sidetracked.
I live in a noisy city. Sometimes when I try to do things mindfully in daily life, the noise is distracting and I try different things. For example, closing the windows, using white noise, etc. Is this the proper way to deal with distracting noises?
No. I mean, it's like cheating a little bit. So if you want, at first you can do that, but that's not really the practice. In fact, are you even a meditator? You have someone with a yellow here. Okay.
Yes.
Some meditation. All right.
Yes.
But yeah, if you've been reading my booklet and following along, then that's not really what we're aiming for. When you hear the noise, this noise in the background here, you acknowledge it. Hearing. If you don't like it, you acknowledge disliking. If you're frustrated by it, you acknowledge frustrated. And you let it go. But it's a training. That's the training. That's what we're aiming for. Not to. Otherwise, you become. I can tell you a story. When I started practicing, I learned this quite well. I was given a alarm clock, and the alarm clock was ticking. So it went tick, tick, tick. And when I did walking meditation, I found myself sinking to the sound, lifting heel, lifting, moving, placing. So doing walking meditation in time with the timer, with the clock, and it drove me crazy. Like day after day after day. So, well, not day after day. After about a day of this, I shoved it under my blankets and put a pillow on top of it and kept walking. And at first, I could still hear it, just the slightest sound, but I could still hear it, and it still drove me to lifting heel, lifting, moving, placing, to be in tune with the ticking. And so finally, I've got enough blankets on top of it and a pillow on top of it that I couldn't hear it at all. And through that way, whenever I needed it, I'd pull it out and then I'd put it back underneath everything. And that's how through that means of avoiding it, I managed to finish my course. And I learned a lot in my first course. I don't think I succeeded terribly well, but I learned quite a bit. And then I did a second course. Before I did the second course, though, they moved me into a room with two other people. It was a long room, but there were three of us, and there were two clocks on the wall, and they were ticking like tick, 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 tick. And by that time, I'd learned something, and so I gave up. And I remember just laughing at myself and saying, just realizing there's no way to. I've been going about this all wrong. And so I let I let the noise continue. I mean, I did the walking meditation anyway. And I let myself. What I did eventually is said to myself, well, okay, so you're in sync, big deal. So you're walking in sync. And I would just watch the movements in sync or not. And eventually my mind started to let go. And it would just started walking as it was and ignoring the sound. Or I would stop sometimes and say hearing, hearing. Or if I got frustrated about it, and just work through it. You know, it's messy, but there's no trick. There's no way around it. Anytime you find yourself looking for a trick to make it easier, you're going the wrong way. You're headed in the wrong direction.
Could we have a FAQ to group together specific technical meditation answers, like how do I note this? Maybe a Google document or something that can be edited by more people?
Well, we have an FAQ that I put together some time ago. It's kind of buried, but I'm hoping to include it in another volume of my book. So added as an extra chapter of the first volume. I don't know whether it's complete, and there are probably always questions that could and should be added to it, but that's something that would answer probably a lot of the questions that we get here. And you can find it on the meditation page, htm.sirimangalo.org.
There are tons of meditation questions in the video wiki as well, all sorted out by different meditation aspects. During meditation, I felt a pressure on my throat like a mild constriction. I noted feeling. Is this something to be concerned about, or just note and move on?
Constriction, I think, is what they mean.
Okay, that makes more sense.
No, being concerned about something is a sign of worry, and worry is going to cause you problems. So you would say worried, worried. Just note and move on. Nothing is worth clinging to. Nothing is worth getting upset about.
Tina pasted the Dhamma, the video wiki in there. Lots of meditation questions there.
Well, there's also the FAQ that I don't think many people have read, which would be useful.
Yeah, that's a little hard to find.
Yeah. Well, it's right there. It's probably should be up higher on the page, above all the translations, but it's at the bottom of the HTM page.
Oh, okay. Just a suggestion, maybe we could put links in a nav bar.
Yeah, if you want to do the coding for it, go for it. Join the group, join the committee.
Yes. Come to our volunteer meetings on Sunday at 1600 UTC. We have people working on technical aspects and food issues and administrative issues. Always more welcome, always. But other than that, you're all caught up on questions, Bhante.
Okay, let's stop there. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks, Robin, for your help.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, have a good night.
Good night.